I support Ron Paul because he is the only one that tells the truth. I was watching the South Carolina debates, and even though the talking heads were giving it to Giuliani, who to me just sounded like another George Bush, talking that the only reason that the terrorists attack us because they're jealous of our democracy and freedom. Well, I agree with Ron Paul. That is bull. The reason they attacked us is simple. We attacked them. For 10 years during the so-called Bush 41 administration, we declared war on Iraq, drove them out of Kuwait. Then we continued with no-fly zones. But even without it, the so-called terrorist thing never existed. They could never. Only reason Al-Qaeda is fighting us there is because we took the fight there, in their backyard. And so far, 3,500 Americans and probably thousands more injured because over there, we can't control their borders. They can control us. And Ron Paul is right. For too many years, we had revisionists in history. I laugh because only Ron Paul is the only man with the guts to tell the truth and to say point blank that the and got to the heart of the real reason. They had no reason to attack us until, what is it? The so-called axis of evil. They weren't hell-bent on invading Washington, D.C. Yeah, they did the attacks because for too many years American presidents and stuff have stuck their nose in foreign policies. You know, hiding behind the shield, we are the invincible America. No country in the world would challenge us. It just took one little raghead and bam, changed the world. Planning probably one of the ultimate attacks, but he did it in 3 stages. It just finally worked on the 4th. And number 2, Ron Paul told the truth. Told everything to the people. He says he did take the time to take the real study. And it said just as plain as day, the reason we got invaded is because for too long we had invaded their country, invaded the Middle East in one form or the other, via sending cruise missiles to the Sudan to blow up a Bear aspirin factory, or to just plain run one group out of another, to running Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait City, to here recently just mainly supposedly making a democratic society, which people don't want to be like us. Right now, I disagree with the so-called supporter. It's going to be. They say, well, we're doing a lot of good. We got a few people who danced around when the statue fell. It was bull crap. Number 2, every one of those Republican candidates, except for Ron Paul, did the usual George Bush spin on everything. The George Bush spin. His interpretation of what the war is and what it should be. His goal is democracy and freedom. When before it was to get weapons of mass destruction out of the hands of the Iraqis. But yet he should know, his father, that the Republicans should know, it started back with Ronald Reagan during the Iran-Iraq war. It was an old joke that said, do you know how George Bush Jr. knew that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? Simple. He still had the receipts. That's the funny part. They knew it because they've been selling to the clown for years. It's kind of funny though. I'm just waiting to see how everything is going to be. You'll see it sooner or later yourself that eventually we're going to start losing the ultimate battles. We already have. The American people are getting tired of being in Vietnam too. Sure, Fox News Network is always going to come up with a popular spin. Heroes of the war showing, men and women showing valor, and then you're always going to have CNN showing it the catastrophes of the war. But to me, we have no business being over there in the Middle East, and recent events proved it. We have a better chance of defending our own grounds, and it proved it in that Fort Dix fiasco. Americans at their own border caught them trying. When they were already here. Imagine if they would have got successful. They did it to us once. We're better off defending our borders, but we're too busy sending off troops to go fight in a war tens of thousands of miles away, trying to prop up a dummy government that as soon as we leave is going to topple like the South Vietnamese government toppled when we left. The only way to stabilize that government is as long as the United States forces are there. Well, they seen it in Vietnam. The vets did. We're seeing it now. Our politicians never learn their lesson. But let's send them a clear and present message to Washington, all the way around. Everyone in the primaries, vote for Ron Paul. For years, since the onset of this war, he has been the only politician up there battling for your rights, your freedoms. He had turned down every one of these so-called patriotic bills, which are nothing more than constitutional land grabs, to usurp and to degrade our Constitution. Our politicians, and especially that George Bush, who simply looks at the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence, just like his predecessor Clinton, as a goddamn piece of paper. Clinton hold more to the Communist Manifesto as the greatest book or documents ever written. He could care less about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, or the Declaration of Independence. Those were actually, to them, written by madmen. The true voice that everyone always gone, especially up in Capitol Hill, is the Manifesto. It proves it with our progressive income taxes. It proves it when they make deals with communist nations. It's time we stop this. It's time to vote for Ron Paul.